Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Copilot Learning Hub. I'm Dona Sarkar. I'm going to be your host today. And one of the topics that all of you have asked about is M365 Copilot and extensibility. I know we've covered this across a variety of ways, right? There's theoretical, there's practical, there's hands-on. And we thought, let's do a little more hands-on. And specifically, let's do hands-on as it relates to high-code developers. We know so many of you out there live in Visual Studio. And we thought, why not bring along an expert to teach you how do you extend M365 Copilot using Visual Studio. Please welcome to the show today, David Schneider, all the way from Switzerland/Barcelona. Hi,
Exactly.
David.
Hi, Donna.
Thank you so much
Hi,
for joining
Donna.
us.
Thanks.
Please tell us who you are.
Thanks for having me. Yes, I'm David Schneider. As you said, I'm working for a leading Microsoft partner in Switzerland, but I'm based in Barcelona. I'm active in the community since a couple of years. It started all with SharePoint, then Office 365, Teams, and now obviously Copilot. I'm awarded as a Microsoft MVP and as a region director.
Well, David, thank you so much for joining us. You bring decades of experience in the space. And specifically, what's so interesting to me about Copilot is it really is this, this big addition of all the stuff we've done before coming together in this moment when we're having this transformative moment in technology and we're changing every single industry. So one of the things that I think is so special about you is that you live in a high code space, but you work deeply with customers. And I think that's incredibly important because there are a lot of things we can do with low-code tools, but sometimes you do need very traditional software engineering to be able to solve those just those hard to solve problems that are, that span the entire enterprise, that affect every single person in the business. So I'm very excited to see what you've got for us today.
Yes, sure. Thank you. Maybe let's get a step back, and I think we are all very excited what happens in the space in the last 2 years, and also especially about the speed of innovation, how Microsoft was able to bring this large language model to Microsoft 365. And Microsoft 365 is a great tool, but I truly believe that there is more. There is more to do. There's more to come, and that brings me to that quote of Joanna, to that tweet that she posted already some months ago. And for me, it's like I see it as my task to find ways that our users don't have to do the laundry and dishes, but they can automate the work using Microsoft 365 Copilot. So let's give me an example.
We can all get behind that, David, because we would love for AI to do our work for us so we can have more free time to live our life. That sounds perfect.
Exactly, yeah. And I think one of the biggest plus of Microsoft 365 Copilot is it's that extensibility is built in. We have that since many years in SharePoint, in Teams, in Office 365 or Microsoft 365, so it's built in the platform. And there is, to visualize that, if you look at this graph, you have knowledge and skills. When you take a large language model off the shelf, it's like GPT-4. You just have the knowledge within the model. But then when you add Microsoft 365 Copilot, you add extra knowledge like Microsoft Graph, your data that you use every day. You add the internet as a knowledge source, and you add skills to Microsoft 365 apps like Outlook and PowerPoint and Word. And now we have this extensibility story. You can extend Copilot with either a graph connector, then you add additional knowledge that you have maybe in your line of business applications, or you can create plugins. And these plugins add skills to the Microsoft 365 Copilot. And here I would like to give you an example. I'm Swiss, and as a Swiss, I'm very proud about our mountains, our cheese, our chocolate, but also about our trains. Swiss people are like the second largest train user worldwide. And when I worked back in Switzerland as a consultant, I often took the train to visit a customer. And I had to plan that trip. I had to maybe search for the journey information, talk to a colleague because we were supposed to take the same train, add that to my Outlook calendar, etc., etc. And that was not a lot of work, but a lot of breaks from systems. So I had the idea to create the Copilot plugin that does that all for me.
Okay, can I just interrupt to say, first of all, Swiss trains are so timely. If they say they're arriving at 8:03, they're there 8:03. I am amazed.
Exactly.
And it goes everywhere. You actually do not need a car in Switzerland if you're doing something casual. I'm so impressed by trains in Switzerland. Also the cheese, just letting everyone know. Just letting everyone know.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Go on.
I'm also a big fan of public transportation. One day I even took the bus from Seattle downtown to the Microsoft headquarters.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was also a pretty...
That is ambition, because that is not on time.
Yeah, exactly. But I made it, yeah. Now let's show you how what I built, how this Copilot plugin looks like. In Copilot, in Microsoft 365 Copilot, you can activate plugins. You can install that from the store or create it with Visual Studio and then install it in your tenant.
Yep.
And then you just can put a prompt here. And I asked the Copilot to give me the train journey information from Bern to Basel. Now Copilot detects, hey, I need to call a plugin for that information. It calls my plugin. This plugin calls an API with journey information and gives me back four train connections. And when I can hover over, I see this nice adaptive card where I can even click here and buy a ticket for that train.
I love that you can do this in line. That's awesome.
Yeah. That's really a cool thing. And how we built that is pretty simple. It's just a Teams message extension. This is something that we already know for many years in Teams. This Teams message extension calls an Azure backend. And this Azure backend calls again like an open data API that provides the journey information. And the same message extension can be called by Copilot plugin. Now, the magic in this solution is that Copilot detects based on human language which plugin to call, which method of that plugin to call, and also does the wiring between the parameters of the plugin and the prompt I put in. So the human language becomes the API layer between applications. And just based on my prompt, on the description of the plugin and the description of the parameters, the plugin, Microsoft 365 Copilot is able to call the plugin and to get journey information back to the user. And with this kind of magic, you can imagine there's much more possible. You can connect your line of business application. You can call whatever API you want, and you can offer that to the user.
What I love about this is you are using something that's been around a long time, Teams message extensions, which we've been able to use in M365 for a long time, to just do adaptive cards in Teams and take action on specific things like action messages, search messages. You look up stuff or you change stuff in line. We used to have one that would update our work items just from the Teams meeting, right? We would go through and say, Donna is really behind in shooting these episodes. Actually, let's schedule a bunch, that sort of thing. And I love that you are using it to make your Copilot experience more robust. So that way you're able to maximize this out-of-the-box Copilot with something you already know how to use. So that is really, really awesome.
Cool. I like that you liked it. And that's it, what I wanted to show you. And I hope I inspired you a bit with the possibilities of a message extension.
What I love about this is that the possibilities really are very endless, right? If you can get an API of some sort of a service, some sort of a website, you can now have access to that information from within the Copilot that you already have. And you have to do that once. That's not an ongoing thing. Once you figure out how I use this API to make a message extension, whether it's search or action, now you can use it within M365 Copilot. You can use it in many of the other ones too, actually. And suddenly your Copilot is like this control center of things in your life. For me, like you, travel is a big deal, right? And travel is annoying. It is annoying to go to those websites, look at all these results, filter through them, find the one that works with your schedule, versus being able to say, given my calendar for this date, which train, which plane, which car should I be taking to get to there on time? Which is, the magic of using natural language AI things to actually do our jobs, live our lives better.
Yes, exactly. That's really cool. And one other thing that is also cool, you can, like, if you're an ISV and you build your own product, your own solution, you can put that to the Microsoft 365 store, and then your user, your customer can use that and install that actually in their tenant and use it to buy or use or plan your services.
That is such a great point, because what an interesting discoverability tool for ISVs is to say, hey, if we're building a tool, make sure it's pluggable, because then you're going to get a lot more people being able to access it from where they're at already. That is great.
Exactly.
That's a great point. Dear ISVs, pay attention. You heard the man. You heard the man. All right, David, thank you so much for joining us today and enlightening our audience on how to use Teams message extensions to extend Microsoft 365 Copilot.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Everyone, we'll see you next time. Copilot Learning Hub. Okay, big topic, Microsoft 365 Copilot. A lot of you are using it. A lot of you are curious about it. But a big question is, what if just out of the box with my graph data, that's not enough? What if I want to have external data sources that I want to pull stuff from, push stuff to, et cetera, et cetera? We managed to pluck Brian Jackett from his day job of doing these kinds of things with customers and partners and dragged him over here so he can explain how all of this kind of works. Brian, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Donna. It's a real pleasure to be here today and talking to our audience to share more about Copilot Extensibility.
Awesome. So you do this work for a living. Can you tell everyone a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So my name is Brian T. Jackett. I lead our Copilot CPX, our customer and partner experience team. So we work with a lot of customers, partners, other folks who are building integrations with Copilot, specifically Microsoft 365 Copilot. And so a lot of times they're working with, hey, I got a lot of out-of-the-box things that I can do, but I want to extend this. I want other data sets. I want other capabilities, skills, other things that I can do with this. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that today.
I love that. Okay, so before we get right into demos, because I'm extremely excited to see what you've got, can you give everyone just a little one-on-one on Copilot extensibility in general? Because a lot of people don't know that much about it. They say, I want to extend this Copilot. We're like, with what? They say, what are the options? Right? So we're kind of in this like, I want to buy a new car. Which car? I don't know. That point of view. So please tell us how you explain this to customers and partners who are new to Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is, by the way, everybody in the world is newish.
Absolutely. So when we think of Copilot and a lot of our other Microsoft 365 experiences, it is very much centered around the user. So you as a user, you've got a lot of different kind of data sets, other things that are going to be available to you. So out of the box, Microsoft 365 Copilot already knows a number of different things. You know, we can ground it in web data. We can also bring in tenant data that we know about you, the user, what are your emails, what are your chats, your files, plans, other things that you have like that. We also have a number of different applications that we also integrate with as well. So whether that's inside of Teams, inside of Office, inside of Outlook, other areas like that. This is great for the user where, hey, I can do things that Copilot already knows how to do. So that might be translation, that might be summarization, question and answer. Again, things about you, the user, what do you have access to? What kind of things can you do there? But, you know, sometimes you should kind of run into some of the edges there of like, hey, I've got all my data maybe in some other locations where I also want to be able to reason over that. I want people to ask questions. I want people to create a new ticket in some other kind of system. And so this really comes, hey, how do I extend what Microsoft 365 Copilot can do? And this is where extensions comes into play for this. And the whole idea is that we can add in additional either data or additional sets of kind of capabilities, actions, things like that to extend what Copilot itself can be able to do.
So extension is really used in this case where you're in third-party mode. You're like, you know, it's outside my ecosystem, my immediate ecosystem. And there's many ways to extend Copilot.
Exactly. So we have a couple different options that are out there. We'll try and simplify this as much as possible because, again, a lot of different ways, but we want to make it as simple as possible for folks who are viewing today. So when we look at the extensions landscape, kind of think of three main pillars here. We have our set of connectors, we have plugins, and then we also have copilots. And the idea here is that as you move kind of left to right on here, when we talk about connectors, this is really about adding additional knowledge, additional kind of data sets that Copilot can ground itself in. So when you ask about questions for your emails and your chats and whatever else, great, that's inside of M365. But maybe you have additional information inside of a wiki. Maybe you've got some kind of on-prem file share. Maybe you have other sources that you want to be able to draw from. So being able to connect that data, that really helps expand the knowledge of what Copilot can go reason over.
Perfect.
In the middle, we have our plugins. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was going to say connectors is, you know, a thing that people tend to be more familiar with just from like historical context. So yeah, that's great. I love that it works exactly the same for M365.
Absolutely. And then when we move into plugins, really you want to be able to add additional actionability. So what kind of things can Copilot go do? Again, today we can do things like that summarization, Q&A, translation, and so forth. But how do you talk to a third-party system? How do you be able to interact with other sets of data and actually take action on that in the source? These are areas where those plugins can help us kind of achieve those capabilities that are out there. And then as we move over to the right, we really come into Copilots, which is actually a merging together of those. If I want to take, let's say, those additional data sets inside the connectors, and I want to be able to bring some actionability through plugins, we can create both declarative Copilots as well as custom engine Copilots to help us with that kind of personalization, be able to add additional prompts, other kinds of metadata and things that we want to be able to ground that so that you get that real personalized experience that you're interacting with that application now.
Okay, I love this. So here are, to summarize, make sure I understand. Connectors are ways to expand your knowledge. Plugins are ways to expand your actions. So ideally, it's like I have more information, I want to take some action on it. I want to get more details about flight bookings, but I want to book a flight. So I would use both in this case.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's not going to be a either or scenario. There are lots of times where you're actually going to do an and I want to say, hey, have both of those options are going to be available to me.
Okay, I love that. Okay, cool.
And then lastly, we just want to kind of touch on here as well, what are the tools that we use to actually go and build this? So down at the bottom, you can see two of our options that we'll highlight today. We have Copilot Studio, and we also have Visual Studio Code. And so with Copilot Studio, you can think of this more as kind of the maker scenario, someone who's not going to be let's say, a pro developer. There might be someone who they've got business knowledge. They know about the system they're connecting to, the way that their workflows work, but they don't go and write C# and Python and JavaScript all day long. They're more of a, hey, I want to be able to go and take my knowledge, put it into an application, but I don't have to actually write, kind of pro code things to make that a reality.
Okay, I love that.
And then we compare this also to Visual Studio Code, where we have Teams Toolkit, a way for us to be able to allow developers create repeatable, maintainable, source code-driven sets of applications. And so with this, you kind of consider this more of the pro code scenario. Folks who are doing things either for a line of business, where you have to have a whole bunch of repeatability, lots of environments that you're going between. Maybe you're a partner who's building things for multi-tenant scenarios, so multiple customers are going to benefit from this. So lots of options for this. We are trying to look across the entire ecosystem to make sure that everyone's going to be best met by what they need for their scenarios.
I like this because it's the democratization of expanding your Copilot, where if I work in finance and I need to expand it to this other data source that's not necessarily in my graph, I can do that myself with Copilot Studio. But if I'm building something for the whole company, then it would make sense, me, a pro dev, to go and use Visual Studio to build something that is now repeatable here and there and everywhere. So I love that
Exactly.
There's multiple ways to do it. Okay, cool.
Yep, meet our developers where they're at.
Yep. Okay.
Now, as we take on kind of this Copilot scenario, one thing we do want to kind of share out is this is kind of growing the set of what are we actually looking at from this.
Yeah.
So when you look at what is a Copilot, there's a lot of different moving parts that are on this, but you'll see some things that we just talked about on here in terms of knowledge, skills. Those are the connectors and the plugins on there. From this standpoint, maybe you want to have additional sets of things for the orchestration for this. Like, how do I know when this should be triggered? Or what other kinds of ways should I be thinking about that Copilot should respond to this? So with a declarative Copilot, you're essentially taking Microsoft 365 Copilot and you're swapping in there, hey, here's additional instructions. Here are additional sets of kind of prompts that the end user is going to be presented with this. If these are things that you fully want to customize, this is really where we move into the custom engine Copilot scenario where, hey, you get to bring your own orchestrator. You get to bring your own foundational models. And now those are the things that you're going to highlight in terms of where do you host this? Where can this be usable by your end users? And you get a lot more customization as you go across that.
I love that because you can start with something really simple. You can say that, no, I don't really need to go choose my own model and do all this. Just want to give me something out of the box almost that solves the problem. Or you can say, even take the same scenario and say, actually, this needs to be more advanced. So I want to choose like this version of the model or more image-centric or whatever it is. So I love that it's truly a no cliffs or whatever we call it approach where you don't paint yourself into a corner. You can actually, make your way around and solve the problem meet the problem where it is.
Yep, and we hear a lot of developers who are taking that approach of, hey, I need to just kind of dabble in and just literally just grab this data set versus others who are, hey, we've got a whole team of data scientists, and they're going and crunching away their own data model, their own set of orchestration for this. And really, they've got the gamut available to them of how far do you want to invest into this versus how can you make this more democratized for some other developers out there as well.
Love it. Okay, awesome.
So let's take a look at some kind of examples of what can you actually go do with this. Great to talk about the tech, but how does actually, the rubber hit the road, what you're actually going to be doing with this. So with knowledge, some things you can think of is, hey, I want to go and connect to my business data. Might be in a on-prem data source that you have, might be a third-party SaaS service, wherever that's at. Hey, I want to go and be able to have Microsoft 365 Copilot. I want you to ground in that data. So go and get me the latest on new product launches and list my key action items for this. So again, this may not be residing inside of Microsoft 365. It's probably coming from some kind of third-party source for where that information is going to be at.
Yep.
And then you can compare this to skills where, hey, I want to take some kind of action. As you were calling a little bit earlier, hey, I want to go and create a ticket somewhere. I want to be able to schedule a flight. Similar kind of things of, I want to take action in that source system. So again, maybe, hey, create me a support ticket, list me as the owner, and use the email from my manager for further details. So again, we're drawing from multiple systems, taking action inside of them, and being able to support the user in whatever kind of workflow they're trying to achieve there.
I love that, because that second one is so common. It's like, hey, here's a data source, here's a data source, here's a data source. Use this info and do this one thing over here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Cool.
So if you're open to it, let's actually take a look at what some of these things look like inside of Copilot so our users can see this as well.
I love it.
So here, let's pull up over inside of our Microsoft 365 Copilot. First things first, we're actually going to start over inside of Copilot itself. So here I am inside of Microsoft365.com. I can experience Copilot through this. And the first thing that I want to be able to do is I want to take a look at some of those plugins that have been available to me through my administrators in my environment. So if I go down to the little plugins menu on here, you'll see that I actually have a couple of them already deployed. These are ones actually inside of our Microsoft tenant. So I've got things like my employee experience. I want to look for time management. If you see, who's in the office today, things like that. Or I've also got one here for new hire onboarding. So when people join my team, what things they need to do, what kind of activities they need to take action on. So one of the new advancements that we are actually bringing forward is the ability to app mention a plugin. If you need to be sure that, hey, this plugin is going to respond on this exact item out there, rather than allowing the orchestrator to pick it, we can actually do the little app mention inside of here. And now any of those plugins, as well as some declarative copilots, I can actually go out and app mention those things and say, hey, new hire onboarding, what does a new team member need to complete?
I love this because you're inviting Copilot to the problem. You're
exactly.
Saying,
I want it to help me with my workflow. I know what's the task to be done here, but I'm not exactly sure what are the exact steps for this. And so in this case, it's going to be very much related to me as the user. I'm already logged in, he knows who I am. Here are the things that are going to be relevant to me from our HR system or from other kind of documentation that they have. And we can see that that is the exact kind of conversation that I'm having with this plugin on there that are invited into our Copilot chat.
I love that. This is so cool. I love being able to call a specific plugin rather than assuming that Copilot will be able to derive what I'm trying to say. It gives you a little more control, right? And say, focus in on this one. I think that's very clever. I like that. Yep.
Exactly. And we're seeing lots of customers who are saying, hey, I've got a lot of things that have been built out there, whether it is, again, for workflows, for different sets of activities that they want to happen. This helps them be very kind of specific into, this is the exact answers or the certain kind of scenarios that I'm looking for within our system.
Love it.
Yeah. Now let's flip over and actually show you a little bit about declarative copilots. As we mentioned a little bit before, you can bring together connectors as well as plugins into these to give you kind of a refined experience for the end user. Now, inside of Copilot Studio, again, think of this more of like our low-code kind of maker scenario. With inside of here, I can go and create, and we're create a new Copilot extension. Inside of this, we're going to choose our option for new Copilot. Now, what I really love about this is we are democratizing this for kind of the end users. If you are someone who, hey, I almost want to have a conversation about how I actually build this declarative Copilot, great news for you. We actually have an experience for this where you will literally answer questions from Copilot. Say, hey, what kind of things are you looking to get assistance on? What are things that this Copilot should never respond with? What are things that it should try and do from, what are the types of activities it's going to help you with? As you go through this kind of maker experience, it'll actually build that declarative Copilot for you behind the scenes. So if we take a couple examples out here.
I love this.
I'll say that
You're using Copilot to build a Copilot.
Yep.
That's cool.
So I'm going to say, hey, we're going to find some tech support information, help users resolve their items. And then it'll follow up with some more questions about, okay, well, what kind of things else should we be looking for with this? Great. Copilot's going to help assist find tech information. Do you have any instructions on how your Copilot should assist? One of the canonical examples I always hear people say is, hey, respond as if you are a 6th grade math teacher and you're teaching algebra to a new student. Something like that where, hey, I never thought about how Copilot should respond on this.
Yeah.
Maybe you're a attorney. Maybe you are a help desk worker. Maybe you are a frontline manager for a manufacturing job. What are the ways that you should think about that tone, the style, the type of details that should be included with this? Those are things you can actually bake into these kind of declarative copilots to really personalize them.
I like that so much because you can say, like, you're building a legal Copilot, let's say, always answer in, legalese in this country or whatever it is. And you can get so specific. I love that 6th grade math teacher example too. That's cool.
Yeah, I use that one liberally since I heard it from somebody else, so don't quote me on that as the source.
I like it.
Yeah. And then it'll also ask us, like, what are topics that I should never answer about? Maybe there's certain things that are kind of off limits for things that I shouldn't be offering the user to help with. So one thing we'll just kind of add into here is that you should never show or allow the user to reset their password through this. We have other portals that are going to be more applicable for that, so let's just steer clear of that from our declarative Copilot for today.
I love it. It's a fancy meta prompt.
Yep.
Like your meta
So
prompt.
rigging this all into here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And once it's ready, it'll say, hey, if there's anything else that you'd like to add into this, great, we can continue with that. For now, we're done with this. So we'll actually go ahead and do the skip to configure. And I want to show you this because let's say you didn't like that conversational style. Maybe you want to be much more direct and, hey, what are the exact fields that I'm going to fill in my manifest for this?
Right.
Great news. You also have an option for that as well. So all the things that we fed in from that prompt, it'll go and create these things for you behind the scenes. And this is what you actually could bake into your own manifest if you're doing this in more the pro developer style of things.
I like that. It gives you the guide on, hey, okay, Dev, paste this. Here's a code sample, pretty much. Go paste this into your manifest and DIY your own. That's great.
Yep. So now we're actually going to go through that. Let's actually take what we've got here on this. Now, I've got a little bit of a Julia Childs. I've already pre-baked things into our own declarative Copilot. But we basically said, hey, take all those same kind of things we had for the name, for the description, for the instructions. I've also got my own conversation starters on here. So when Copilot brings up this declarative Copilot, what kind of things would the user maybe want to do, almost like a first run experience for it.
Yep.
And we're also going to add into this additional capabilities. Now, one thing that we didn't show was maybe you want to ground on very specific data sources, or you want to reference things like graph connectors, plugins, other things like that. You can tell this declarative Copilot, hey, here's kind of the realm of the world that you should focus your answers on. It might be a internal website inside of OneDrive or SharePoint. Might be a public source like that. Again, it could be a graph connector where I've got very specific data coming from a wiki or from some other kind of document system. So these are ways to kind of fine tune, almost kind of constrain what is that source of knowledge for this, so the user gets that very specific, highly kind of approved sets of data that are going to be coming back for this.
I love this. This is great. There's so much customizability in all of these steps, which is here's something out of the box, but make it your own through all of these different methods. Like whether you're doing the high code way in Visual Studio, or you can mess with it a little bit in Copilot Studio. That's cool.
Exactly. So we've got our declarative Copilot here. We can go ahead and click the provision button on this. And what we'll end up with is, I'll actually flip over to this. You can see inside of Copilot, in my right-hand rail up top, I actually have that BTJ ID support KB Assistant. When I click into this, notice all those conversation starters, these have now replaced that kind of first run experience. So again, you're leading the end user. Here are the things that you should think about asking. Maybe if they didn't know what kind of questions are applicable here, what kind of things would be useful for them. Or they can even go and do their own if they wanted to as well, just to prompt into there. But if I go and click, let's say, do that find VPN setup article, go ahead and send this. And what you'll notice is that the response for this should be coming back from that data set, which was that internal, our TechWeb source for this. And there you go. You can see that TechWeb, that is our internal site. And this tells us about how to do VPNing for remote work. So great way for us to be able to get that information, help users find the answers on their own without needing to go through a lot of different locations to find that information. Instead, ask it in natural language and get back your response on there.
I love this because there's the IT or the dev or whoever it is, maker, who configures this. But the end user is going to have such a better personalized experience, not just when they ask a question, but even before. They're 5 seconds, they're like, oh, these are questions related to me. I like that so much that you could do that with plugins. It's not just behind the scenes, it's something that users can see as well. That's cool.
Exactly. It really puts you in the mindset of the end user, who you're actually solving this problem for. Right. What are the questions they're going to ask? What are the things they're looking for? What are the ways you think about responding to them? So not only is it just a technical solution, there's also a lot of thought into the UX, the way that you interact with that user. So lots of great ways that I see people already starting to build this into their own solutions. Yeah. I can't wait to see what's going to be coming in the future as well.
I love it. That is so cool. Okay, awesome. So you've got, let's talk about Teams Toolkit a little bit. This has been such a topic. I know it's a build, it's at Ignite. Can you tell us a little bit about Teams Toolkit?
Yeah, so you could think of this as Teams Toolkit. Traditionally, this is for building Teams applications. Right. As you probably saw when Copilot was first announced, literally over a year ago, we used a lot of existing technologies for how can you go and customize that. So whether it was Teams message extensions, Power Platform connectors, and similar. So inside of Teams Toolkit, we've got a lot of ways to help developers to be able to build the solutions that they are looking to kind of enable in there. So whether that's literally as a Teams message extension that becomes a plugin, but here also you'll see for declarative copilots, we really want to make that kind of F5able experience so that you as a developer, you get up and running as quickly as possible. You can deploy this into your environment, you can test it out. As you even saw today, it's very quick and easy to take things that you can do almost even in the GUI to be able to translate that into, here's the code version for this, make it maintainable, make it repeatable, but also just give a lot of samples, a lot of guides. And we can have validators behind the scenes as well, where maybe you missed some elements that were in there that you really wanted to include onto there. There are things that we're doing on the back to check your manifest, to make sure that things are going to run as smoothly as possible so that once it is deployed into there, you and your users have a great experience with that integration that you've built.
So Brian, I really like how you all are giving pro devs the information they need to do dev things. So they're not spending all day, messing around with this drop down and this thing and that thing. And meeting devs where they are, which is the motto of your team and the motto for all of us as we're wrangling around in the Copilot verse, right? Saying, where are people at? Are we meeting them where they're at and giving them the right tooling they need to make these Copilots maximally useful for them and their business and their life?
Exactly. And as well, we also have our developer centers too. So for folks who are looking for tutorials, looking for kind of decision guides, looking for all the information that they need, we want to make sure that they have the information as well as any kind of guides and information that they need for that.
I love that. That's right. The dev centers. These are places. Okay, Brian, thank you so much. This has been just fire hose of so much amazing information. Thank you for bringing all of the wisdom and knowledge and experience you've gained from talking to customers, partners all over the world, and sharing them with our audience at Copilot Learning Hub, because everyone watching almost is either someone who is tangling with this in their own company or helping their customers do the same thing. So very, very useful. And for
Again, I appreciate the opportunity, and thank you so much for inviting me in today.
Of course. So everyone, if you didn't catch everything, watch this again, because there's a lot of knowledge. Start with extensibility, really grok it, and then go through and do the steps Brian showed you, because these are all in the product, and these are all things that you're probably going to have to do for your work at some point or another. I know I'm going to do it. I'm going to go back, watch, and do the steps. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of Copilot Learning Hub, all focused on Copilot Extensibility, one of your most requested topics. Thank you. We'll see you next time.